Good afternoon, everybody. How are y'all doing today? Welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, my name's Dylan. I also go by Mini Truck Murphy. Now, I know it's been a while since I posted a video. I do apologize for that. I've had a lot going on. A lot's changed. It is currently August 12th, 2025. It's Tuesday. I just got home from work. Jumped in, grabbed a shower. And I've been doing some stuff on this old laptop, trying to find some old info, and happened to come across a bunch of comments and stuff on the old YouTube channel. People want to know, hey, where have you been? You still alive? You dead? You know, what you doing now? Did you ever find another job? Did you ever get this situated? So I just want to give you guys an update and give y'all thanks for wanting one and checking in and leaving these comments and whatnot and questions. It was actually good to see and good to know that people wanted an update. So, without further ado, let's get into it. My last video was April of 2024. That is well over a year ago. Like I said, a lot's changed. So, if you want to go watch that video, you can. But to summarize, in that video, I was talking about being let go from Forward Intermodal, trying to deal with this license suspension being on my record, and trying to find a new job. Now, as far as the license suspension, there really isn't much of an update. I unfortunately was never able to get that resolved. If you remember me talking about that, if you've already seen the video, that it was popping up that my license had been suspended from 12 of 2022 to 2023. And it was odd because I never had to pay any reinstatements, never got a notice. That's when I was in that accident. Was during that time. So it was very odd that all of a sudden, here it is 2024, and I get this on my record that my license is being suspended. I've went to the courts, I've went to the DMV, I've called, I've emailed, I've done all types of things trying to, hey, why is this on my record? It says it was for 2 serious commercial violations, but what was the 2 serious commercial violations? The only ticket on my record was a speeding ticket, minor speeding ticket in my personal vehicle. And then the accident in a commercial vehicle, which is when the alleged suspension was going on. So, if you remember, that accident was a no-fault, non-preventable. I was rear-ended, and then the lady actually left the scene of the accident. So, never did get that resolved. Finally just had to chalk it up as a loss, and was just going to have to deal with it. As far as where did I go after this, after Forward, it was very hard to find a job. A lot of places, they didn't want to hire me because of the license suspension being on my record and it stating for 2 serious commercial violations. A lot of places turned me down. Finally, one of the places that was willing to actually take me was Night Transportation. And yes, that Night Transportation, the one that's merged with Swift. They had a terminal in Lebanon. They were willing to take me on, so I went. I did have a hard time getting hired though still, because when they inquired with Forward, the safety department told them I was terminated for a safety violation. That just being the license suspension, even though it wasn't a current suspension. It actually took my old terminal manager at Forward contacting some of the people over at Night and clarifying the situation, letting them know what was going on. It also helped that he happened to used to be the safety manager for Night at that terminal. So big shout out to Brent. I do appreciate that. It wasn't his fault. He didn't want to have to let me go. It was safety. It was the company itself. It was corporate. I'd already ruffled some feathers with corporate about a few things I didn't agree with, and so it is what it is. As far as my time at Night, it was honestly short-lived. No fault of theirs. At this point, I'd already talked about being burnt out, being tired, considering taking a break from trucking, and getting into doing something else. And that's something I'll get into in a minute. But as far as Night, they did everything they said they would do. They kept me moving. I always had at least 2 or 3 pre-plans on me at once. I never sat. Good equipment. Had, I think, a 2024 International. No, it wasn't that new because this was 2024. So it was a year or two old. It wasn't a very old truck at all. Low miles. Had a fridge, inverter. It's a comfortable truck. I was actually quite impressed. Didn't care for the camera, not the cameras, but the truck's only doing 65 miles an hour. They didn't have driver-facing cameras, which I was trying to say. And then some people complain about the pay scale, but it didn't really seem to affect me too much. I did pretty good and overall made pretty decent money. I liked night, but the thing was, like I said, I was already burnt out, stressed, just kind of fed up with everything. And on top of that, being gone 2.5 weeks, only home for a few days, it just wasn't working out. It was really hard. And what kind of finally broke me was, being on the phone with my daughter one night and her saying, Daddy, when are you going to be home? Why aren't you home? I miss you, and, her not understanding why I'm not home. So, I ultimately made the decision to find a different career field and to leave night, which I hated doing, but, it just felt like it was the right thing at the time. So I left night, and I decided to become a mechanic. That's something I'd always, turn wrenches in my spare time. I've talked about the S10 that I've built. I've talked about, always working on different things, and just seemed like a good fit. So luckily there was a shop in town about 20 minutes from where I live. I kind of knew the owner a little bit. Had friends that worked there. They were needing a front end and alignment tech, and they showed me everything I needed to know. Even helped me get my ASE certification, or at least one of them. There's several to get, but got one, and it's awesome place to work. I've been there for over a year now, and I enjoy it. I'm home every night, off on the weekends, only work 8 to 5 every day. I get paid flat rate, or not flat rate, but flag hours, but I still manage to make good money. He treats all his employees like family, and you hear that get thrown around a lot, like, oh, we're like family. In reality, everybody hates each other. No, we really all are like family. I could call them right now, say, hey, I need this, and they'd help, and they could do the same for me. We go out and do things together after work. We've gotten into doing the junk car races and shit. Excuse my language. And we have a lot of fun, and I enjoy it. I get to, work on my stuff after hours and be home more. Like I said, I make decent money, especially considering, the average hourly pay where I work and so on and so forth. And starting out with somebody who had no experience, I can't complain. So that's what I've been up to. That's a little bit of what I've been doing. It was a hard year, but it was much needed. That break was much needed. But that break will be coming to an end soon. So I have plans to get back in a truck somewhere between March and April of 2026. I've been looking at trucks, been trying to save up a good little chunk of money and get back into it. It's just something I've always been honest with about, as far as my boss and, talking about things. He knew at some point I'd get back in the truck. He knows I'm going to be leaving. And he's understanding. He's absolutely cool with it. And supportive. Everyone is. And it's much appreciated, But I'm going to be going back to being an owner up. I, told myself if I'm going to do this, I'm going to do it as an owner-op. I'm not going back as a company driver. You know, especially if I'm going to be over the road again, I want to be able to choose when I'm out and when I'm home. But, you know, this break it's taught me a lot. It's given me a chance to work on my anger, work on my road rage, which we're up here. Now I've got them way down here, you know, and, you know, I've started going to church more, found the Lord, you know, got baptized, spend more time with my family, and given me a chance to do a lot of things I needed to do. So I'm excited to get back into trucking. I'm excited to get back into doing what I love, you know, and that's where my heart is, and that this break's really made me realize that this is what I want to do, and this is where my heart's at. So we're gonna get back to it. Still kind of looking at my options. You know, I'm thinking about really getting back into flatbed. I enjoy doing flatbed, and it pays pretty good too. You know, I've been looking at load boards. You know, looking at the different freight markets, different lanes. Doing my research on, you know, different carriers. I've considered, you know, getting my own authority. I've considered, you know, leasing on. I think starting out I'm just going to lease on, but I think the end goal is definitely going to be, you know, getting my authority. So that's going to be fun. I'm excited. I can't wait. Like I said, I love where I work now, but you know, it's not truly where my heart's at. And, you know, on top of that, like I said, I do make decent money, but it's not enough to reach my goals and do the things I want to do. You know, I want to be able to give my daughter and my wife the best life possible. And I'm sure some of y'all are thinking, man, you got out of trucking. Why in the world are you fixing to go back in? You know, as I've always said, trucking's kind of like the mafia. Once you get in, it's hard to get out. I never quite got out. I did a little bit, but you know, every time you hear a truck pass by, you know, I miss it. You know, every time I see an old picture or memory pop up, you know, of my old truck, I miss it. You know, not to mention one of my old buddies, you know, just got himself another Kenworth that's just like my old T680, so made me miss it even more. But like I said, I've got goals, I've got things I want to do in life that, you know, my wife wants to be a stay-at-home mom. You know, right now we both work. She works her ass off, so do I. She wants to spend more time with her daughter, and I want her to be able to do that. She's an amazing mom, and I want her to be able to be a stay-at-home mom. That's what she wants to do. So, you know, that's one of the goals. So she can do that. I want to be able to pay our bills on just my income, but not just pay our bills, but be able to, you know, go out, do fun things, you know, and save money and save for our future. You know, we've talked about putting our daughter in private school when she gets time, which is really in the next year or two. She's already in preschool, so, you know, that time's coming up quick. You know, I want to be able to provide for my parents when they, you know, they're getting up there in age. And to be honest, you know, that's something I've been thinking a lot about is, you know, they didn't exactly prepare for retirement in their future and whatnot. You know, my dad's 68 years old, still having to work, and at this rate, he ain't ever going to be able to stop. And I don't want them to have to do that. You know, I want to be able to help, you know, let them retire and help them, you know. But at the same time, I don't want to put that on my daughter when I'm their age and she's my age, you know, or, you know, you get what I'm saying. So, you know, it's all about the future and my family and I. So that's a little bit of an update on where I've been, what I've been up to, kind of the things I've been doing and why I'm going to get back into trucking. You know, I kind of rambled on a little bit. If you guys stayed this far, I appreciate you watching. Means a lot. So, if you guys have any questions for me, if you guys have any suggestions for a company, maybe I can release on to. I'm all ears. I'd love to hear it. I'd love to get some ideas, and appreciate it. So you guys have a great day. Be safe out there, and I'll catch you on the next one. Peace.